As children, most, if not all of us, have been required to take standardized tests. These tests affected us as students and have also shaped the people we grew up to be. The No Child Left Behind Act, also known as NCLB, has altered our education system, implementing the testing environment that I, along with some of you, grew up in. This way of standardized testing has many flaws that have caused them to fail to achieve their goals, as well as caused many negative effects on students and teachers. Before we can talk about the flaws of standardized testing, let's begin by looking into the No Child Left Behind Act that implemented the test. According to the U.S. Department of Education, the No Child Left Behind Act of 2001 is the most recent revisement of the 1965 Elementary and Secondary Education Act signed by former President George W. Bush. This act has impacted almost every child enrolled in schools since the early 2000s and currently impacts over 15 million students in almost every school district nationwide. This act claims to provide a more inclusive, fair, and reasonable education system by providing increased federal support for education assistance for poor children and minorities and hopes to improve their academic progress. So how does this goal relate to standardized testing? NCLB implemented standardized tests as a steadfast way to measure a student's educational progress as they move through school. They were also designed to measure the quality of a student's school. Students from grades 3 through 8 and 10 are required to take annual standardized tests in math, reading, and science. Since the implementation of the No Child Left Behind Act, the nation has become solely driven to raise students' test scores through the institution of more tests and even stricter requirements in curriculum affecting the students and the teachers. A revised way of teaching, referred to teaching as the test, has reportedly caused 44% of school districts to reduce the time spent on science, social studies, and arts by an average of 145 minutes per week in order to focus on reading and math to increase test scores, per a study done by the RTC. Since the implementation of No Child Left Behind, we have seen a shift in the education system, followed by negative effects in students and teachers. Standardized testing is supposed to ensure quality education for students, but students are being pushed to their physical and emotional limits, which is nothing but a detriment to the original goal. Tests are used to evaluate students as young as pre-K to determine if children are ready for school and to diagnose learning disabilities. Not long after entering school, tests are used to prepare and get students ready for testing done by NLBC in the 3rd grade. This drive to help prepare our students in itself is not a bad thing. However, the Gazelle Institute of Human Development has shown that the emphasis and importance of testing is making children feel like failures as early as pre-K after a 3-year study was completed in October 2010. This sense of failure has become instilled in students from repeatedly taking tests and struggling to meet the norms set by their peers. The pressure set by these tests to live up to expectations set by their parents, teachers, and schools are making young students anxious and has commonly led to crying, vomiting, and even diminishing of bowel control. The environment of testing brought on by NCLB and other government movements has not only left the nation with stagnant and sometimes decreasing test scores, but has also introduced students to premature anxiety and loss of confidence across the country. Along with pushing students to and past their physical and emotional limits, teachers are also being punished to do extremely well on these tests. NCLB has implemented along with pushing students to and past their physical and emotional limits, teachers and schools are also being pushed to do extremely well on these tests. NCLB was implemented to hold schools and teachers accountable for student success and educational progression. While this is not unfavorable policy in theory, the practice has led to questionable and unfavorable results. Teachers in school districts are now being punished or rewarded depending on how their students compare to standards set by the state and other districts. A teacher's salary or even their career can now depend upon the students perform on these tests. Subpar test scores could cost teachers a cut in salary or even their teaching contracts. School districts across the nation are in jeopardy of being closed or completely restaffed because they did not make the goal of 100% proficiency set by their school. In an attempt to counterbalance the negative consequences, many states have begun to focus on monetary incentives to encourage raising test scores. Government programs such as Race to the Top tend to improve by offering massive amounts of educational funding, while the local level teachers' salaries, raises, and bonuses are set on their students' test scores. As the use of these punishments and rewards become more common, teachers and school districts have put their focus not on the betterment of their students, but on attaining the nationally desired scores. Even though these government programs were created to raise test scores, the U.S. math score dropped from 18th percent in 2002 to 31st in 2009 in the Program for International Student Assessment, also known as PISA. Test scores showed a similar decline in science and no dramatic changes in reading. On top of these changes, a National Research Council reported that there was no evidence indicating that the test-based programs were even working. Dramatic measures have been taken in the hopes of raising test scores in the U.S. However, the tests have no evidence that it's working. In some cases, the opposite has even been seen. While the introduction of standardized tests in the public sector may be well intended, it may generate a system that places pressures on individuals and organizations, which in turn produce undesired behavior and results. Standardized testing in the U.S. holds unrealistic goals, trying to be met by an effective system. The Race to the Top and No Child Left Behind. The nation is trying to hold schools accountable for their students' education and success throughout school. Again, what they fail to see is their measures are ineffective. Students are being pushed to their physical and emotional breaking points. Teachers' careers are being put at risk if their students do not score well. And schools are in jeopardy if they do not reach the nation's unrealistic goal of 100% proficiency. What the nation needs is a change in what they do to handle these testings instead of struggling to meet unrealistic goals in an ineffective way.